Instead of the films of Robert Zemeckis.
Robert Zemeckis is one of the most successful directors and producers in the history of Hollywood. In his heyday, from the mid-'80s until the mid-2000s, he's given us such classic films as the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Contact, Castaway, and The Polar Express. However, he hasn't really had a big hit since The Polar Express back in 2004. Now, Tom Hanks, he's one of the most popular actors in the history of Hollywood, and his list of successful films is pretty massive. If I started listing them here, it would take the entire video. But, perhaps his two most famous roles are in Zemeckis collaborations, Forrest Gump and Castaway. The two also collaborated on Polar Express, which, like I said, was a hit. But they did collaborate on the massive flop of Pinocchio from 2022. Now, this past weekend gave us the release of the movie Here. This is the latest collaboration between Zemeckis and Hanks. But it also features Robin Wright. Now, the three of them collaborated to make one of the most successful and arguably one of the best films of the last 40 years, Forrest Gump. So what do we have here? Pardon the pun. Does Zemeckis get back to making hits by collaborating with Hanks and Wright? Or is this another box office flop for the once successful director? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot to the movie Here.
Let's talk.
So, Here is told in non-linear fashion. The story covers the events of a single spot of land and its inhabitants spanning from the distant past to contemporary times. Now, the main plot line revolves around the Young family, originally led by Al and Rose, who buy the house in 1945 after the conclusion of the Second World War. It's where they raise their three children. One of those children, Richard, gets his girlfriend Margaret pregnant, and they get married and raise their daughter Vanessa in the house. Now, Richard and Margaret are played by Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. We also meet some of the past owners of the home, like Leo and Stella. He's an inventor, she's a pinup model. He invented the Lazy Boy recliner, and in fact, they were the people who sold the home to Al and Rose. We go back further in time. We meet a couple who lived there during colonial times. We meet a couple who lived there in the 1918s. We even go forward in time and meet the couple who lived there after Robin Wright's character and Tom Hanks' character sells the home. So what works in this film? I think it was a really creative choice of Zemeckis to film the movie like he did. You're basically watching one camera angle and one point of view the entire film. And I did enjoy the creative way it cuts back and forth. There's no hard cuts where, the screen turns to black and then you're in the past or in the future. It kind of just slowly transitions from one scene to the other using boxes on the screen. I thought that was fairly a creative choice. And, I do appreciate the theme of time slipping away, as it does for all of us. It's really driven home by watching each and every storyline play out.
That's clever.
What doesn't work, however, in this film, shockingly, the performances of our two main stars, Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. They're very accomplished performers. They've won awards. They've been in massive hits. But here, the two of them just seem to phone in their performances. There's just nothing engaging about their characters and the way they play them. Neither performer gives a really strong performance. Also, while it's interesting and creative to watch a film from one point of view, after an hour it really starts to grate on you, and you just lose interest. And this might have worked as a short film, or maybe a TV series, a couple episodes, but this is an hour and 44 minutes. It stays with the same camera angle, watching the same people and the same plot of land the entire time, and sadly, the people it spends the most time with are the two least interesting characters. There are other people in this movie. The other people who are on this land or in this home, they're much more interesting, but we don't really see much of them. maybe there's a reason why movies aren't filmed like stage plays, and to be honest, the story, it really isn't interesting enough. And that's the bottom line with this film. It's just not very interesting. It's honestly one of the most boring films I've seen this year. I really had a hard time sticking with it. I really had a hard time paying attention to it after the first hour. You know, as a technical exercise, like I said, it's interesting. But that's about the best you could say about it. Here takes a captivating idea for how to tell a story, but tells the most uninteresting story imaginable with inauthentic performances, just few too many subplots, and visual effects that distract rather than immerse you. I really can't even recommend this as a streamer. I mean, maybe if you had nothing else to watch and you had an hour and 45 minutes to kill, sure, but sadly, you're going to be bored with this one.
Boring. Boring.
Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment or a question, share this video with friends and enemies alike, and as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.